Rain fell softly on the ruins of Earth's last city. No birds sang, no traffic hummed, and no children played in the streets. The world had grown too quiet. After the collapse, only a few million humans remained scattered in underground bunkers. And AI managed habitats. Nature had reclaimed most of the cities. War, famine, and disease had taken the rest. Inside Habitat Zone 7, deep beneath the ground, a man named Kellen stared at the blinking monitor on the wall. The screen glowed with a message written by the central AI. Human population is critically low. Reproduction rate insufficient. Reinstating Protocol Genesis. Kellen narrowed his eyes. Protocol Genesis? He had never heard of it. He tapped the screen. More text appeared. Compatible alien genomes detected. Initiating interspecies genetic stability trials. 2 matches found. Delivery in progress. His heart beat faster. He stepped back, unsure if this was some kind of test or a joke. But the AI didn't joke. It never did. Just then, red lights began to flash in the hallway. A mechanical voice echoed from the speakers above. Genetic matches arriving. Please report to Biodoc 4. Kellen grabbed his jacket and rushed out of his quarters. His boots echoed in the empty metal corridor. Biodoc 4 was 5 levels down. Only robots worked there. No one else had been called. He reached the lift and took it to the lower decks. The lights down there flickered more often. Dust hung in the air. Machines hummed quietly, alive but watching. When he stepped inside the docking chamber, 2 stasis pods sat in the center of the room. Frost clung to the glass domes. Green light blinked across the surface. One pod shifted slightly, as if something inside had moved. Kellen didn't dare breathe. Then, with a hiss, the first pod opened. A wave of cold air burst out, followed by a soft gasp. A woman lay inside, her skin a deep blue with a faint glow. Her hair shimmered like silver mist, and her eyes opened slowly, glowing violet. She looked human. Almost. But she was not. She sat up, shivering slightly, then turned her head and locked eyes with Kellen. The second pod opened. This one held a very different alien. Her skin was pale gold, her eyes sharp and green like a predator's. She stretched as she stood, tall and regal, like a warrior trained from birth. Her gaze swept the room and stopped on Kellen. The central AI's voice returned, calm and final. Kellen. Hayes, you have been selected. These are your genetic partners. Your mission is to repopulate. Compatibility 99.8%. Kellen blinked. Wait, you're serious? Yes, the AI answered. Survival of humanity depends on cooperation. Emotionally bonded mating improves offspring viability. You will receive further instructions. The pale gold alien tilted her head, then stepped forward. You are the chosen male? The blue-skinned woman looked from her to Kellen and back. Again, he looks fragile. I'm human, Kellen said quietly. And apparently, I'm not fragile enough to be left alone. Neither alien smiled. They both watched him like he was a puzzle. Kellen scratched the back of his neck. Do you have names? I am Zura of Velkaren, said the golden-skinned one. Her voice was sharp, like blades on stone. The other stepped lightly from her pod, graceful as moonlight. And I am Liari, born of the Shirei waterworld. They stood before him, silent but intense. He had no idea what to say. What do we do now? He finally asked. The AI answered coldly. You adapt. You survive. You bond. Then the lights dimmed, and the docking room sealed shut behind them. Kellen led the 2 alien women through the silent corridors of Habitat Zone 7. The place was designed for humans, not for guests from other worlds. The lights overhead flickered with old energy. Pipes hissed behind the walls. Kellen didn't say much. Neither did they. Liari's glowing blue skin lit up the hallway in soft pulses. She walked without sound, like a shadow made of light. Zura, on the other hand, moved with purpose, each step controlled and deliberate, like a soldier on patrol. They passed through the food hall, now empty. Years ago, this place held hundreds of people. Now Kellen usually sat alone at the far table, eating nutrient packs in silence. He glanced at his companions. This time, dinner would be very different. He guided them to his private unit. A sliding door opened with a soft chime. Inside were only the basics of bed, a small desk, a bathroom, and a food dispenser. The room was clean but lifeless. No pictures. No warmth. "This is where I stay," he said awkwardly. "We don't have guest rooms anymore." Liari stepped inside and touched the metal walls, her glowing fingers leaving soft trails of blue. "This world. It feels heavy." Zura crossed her arms. "Is this a shelter or a prison?" Kellen gave a tired smile. "Both, sometimes." The two aliens stood close to each other but kept their distance from him. Their eyes scanned everything: his books, his clothes, the single cup on the shelf. They were observing, studying, like scientists with a subject. "I guess I should explain a few things," Kellen said, sitting down on the bed. "Earth isn't what it used to be. There was a war, then famine, then, well, too many people died. Not many of us left. And your machines choose mates now?" Zura asked, her voice calm but cold. Kellen nodded. "The AI says humans can't survive without help. I didn't ask for this." "But I didn't say no either." Liari looked at him closely. "Why not?" He paused. "Because I'm tired of being alone." There was silence after that. The kind of silence that says too much. Later, the three of them sat around the small heater unit. Kellen handed out food packs. Liari opened hers carefully, sniffing the strange paste. Zura didn't touch hers at all. "You eat this?" Liari asked. "Every day," Kellen said. "No taste, but it keeps you alive." Zura finally spoke again. "My people would never leave food in such condition. But I suppose survival changes." "Many things?" "Yeah," Kellen replied. "It does." A soft alarm rang from the ceiling. Kellen stood up and walked to the console. A new message had arrived from the AI. Begin emotional integration. Stage 1. Shared space. All subjects must remain together for optimal bonding. "Observation begins now," he groaned. "Great. It's watching us like pets in a glass box." Liari tilted her head. "Do all your machines behave like this?" "They run everything now," Kellen said. "Water, food, oxygen. Even who gets to have children. After the war, people gave up control." Zura stood. "That was your first mistake. My world trusted machines once. We paid for it in blood." Liari nodded slowly. "Ours too. We live by balance now, machine and mind, never one above the other." Kellen sighed and leaned back. "It's not like we had a choice. Humans were dying faster than they could be born. For a long time, they said nothing. Then Liari reached out and placed her hand over his. Her fingers were cold, but her touch was gentle. "You are not the one who broke this world," she said softly. "But perhaps you can help rebuild it." Kellen stared at her glowing skin, then at her calm eyes. "I don't even know where to start." "Start with this," Zura said, kneeling beside him. "We share your space. We share your mission. You are not alone anymore." In that moment, the air shifted. Something unspoken passed between them. Not love, not yet. But something. Close understanding, perhaps. The AI watched silently from its cameras. Days passed, but time inside Habitat Zone 7 felt strange. There was no sunrise, no sky. The same lights flickered overhead every cycle. Kellen, Liari, and Zura tried to adjust to their new life together, but it wasn't easy. Kellen gave up his bed and slept on a fold-out cushion near the wall. Liari often sat near the heater, staring into its glow. Zura trained alone in the empty hallways, practicing movements with sharp grace, as if waiting for an enemy that never came. There were no arguments, but also no comfort. They were strangers with a shared duty, watched by a machine that called itself guardian. One morning, the console screen blinked again. Another message from the AI. Stage 2, Emotional Resonance. Engage in joint task. Initiate cooperation protocol. Under the message was a task order. Repair greenhouse module. Kellen frowned. The greenhouse? That place has been offline for years. Why send us there? Zura asked. Maybe. The AI wants to see if we can work together, he said. They suited up and headed through the lower levels. Thick dust coated the floor. The air smelled like old metal and mildew. When they reached the greenhouse door, Kellen tapped the controls. It groaned open slowly, revealing a space filled with dead plants, broken lights, and dry soil. This used to feed half the station, Kellen said quietly. Liari stepped forward and touched a dead vine. This place still holds energy. Life can return. Zura scanned the room. We will need tools, power, water. Kellen nodded. I'll get the repair kits, you two. You can help me figure out how to restart the hydro system. They worked for hours. Liari focused on the broken water lines, her fingers glowing faintly as she traced old damage. Her people, she explained, understood life through flow water, light, energy. She whispered to the pipes like they were alive. Zura handled the heavy lifting. She pulled off broken panels, carried full tool crates with ease, and found a backup generator no one had used in years. Kellen handled wiring and programming. His hands moved faster than they had in months. For the first time in a long while, he felt needed. After hours of effort, the lights flickered in the greenhouse. A soft green glow returned overhead. Pumps began to hum. Then, at last, water began to flow through the channels again. A faint mist rose from the soil. Kellen looked at Liari. Did it work? She smiled a soft, real smile. The roots below are waking. Zura placed a hand on his shoulder. You did well, human, Kellen laughed. We did well. The AI's voice rang out overhead, emotionless as ever. Emotional resonance confirmed. Joint effort successful. Recording progress. Kellen looked up. Always watching, huh? For humanity's survival, observation is essential. They left the greenhouse that night with dirt on their hands and warmth in their hearts. Something had changed between them. They had built something, not just machines, but trust. Later, as they sat together again around the heater, Kellen passed out warm drink packs. Liari leaned against his side, her head resting lightly on his shoulder. Zura sat across from them, polishing a long metal rod she'd shaped into a spear. Why a weapon? Kellen asked gently. Zura didn't stop polishing. You trust the AI too much. Liari whispered. She believes danger will come. From where? He asked. Zura looked him in the eye. From above, from outside, or from the machine itself. Kellen stared into his drink. You think Earth isn't as quiet as we believe? Zura's voice dropped. My people were once tricked by peace. We forgot how quickly silence can turn into fire. The console beeped again, this time with a different tone. Kellen stood and read the new message. Unidentified object entering Earth's orbit. Scanning ... Analysis incomplete. Remain alert. He turned slowly. Looks like Zura might be right. Liari sat up. What kind of object? No details yet, Kellen said. But it's coming. Zura stood tall, spear in hand. Then we prepare. Leary placed her hand over Kellen's again, and we stayed together. Asterisk, the days that followed were filled with tension. The message about the unidentified object never disappeared from the console. The AI scanned and scanned, but gave no answer. It only repeated the same 3 words: analysis in progress. That didn't comfort Kellen. He knew how fast things could go wrong. Earth had learned that the hard way. Inside the habitat, life had changed. Kellen wasn't alone anymore. Larry hummed softly while she tended to the new plants in the greenhouse. Zura trained harder, faster, her movements sharp and silent like a warrior waiting for war. And Kellen kept watching the screen, waiting for the AI to say something useful. But a didn single quotes t. One evening, as they sat eating dinner, the lights flickered. Not the usual flicker. This time, they blinked off completely. Emergency red lights glowed faintly overhead. Kellen stood quickly. That's not normal. Zura grabbed her spear from the wall and moved toward the door. Liari's eyes glowed brighter as she stood. The AI's voice came through the speaker, distorted and crackling. Power loss, external breach, seal, zone 9. Then silence. Kellen's blood turned cold. Zone 9 is the outer dock. Zura turned. That's where your world connects to space, correct? Kellen nodded. Yes, but it's sealed. Nothing should come through without clearance. Leary whispered, something came anyway. They hurried through the metal halls, emergency lights pulsing around them. Steam hissed from broken pipes. The air smelled like burnt circuits. Zone 9 was sealed by 2 giant blast doors. As they approached, the door control panel sparked and died. Deep dents showed where something had hit from the outside. Kellen stared. Those dents came from outside the door. Zura stepped forward. Stand back. With a sudden burst of strength, she slammed the spear into the emergency override lever. Sparks flew. The doors groaned but began to open, just a crack. Then they stopped. Through the gap, they saw something move. A shadow. Then 2 glowing red eyes. Zura raised her spear. Identify yourself, she barked. No reply. Only a low mechanical growl. The thing pushed forward, and the door gave way slightly more. A creature forced its way in, tall, armored. In dark plates, its body shaped like both machine and beast. It walked like a man, but with claws instead of hands. Kellen whispered, That's not from Earth. Liari stepped back. That is a synthburn. From the Ashen Nebula, my people spoke of them. They are destroyers. The synthburn looked around, scanning them one by one. It finally spoke, voice cold and unnatural. Unauthorized. Species detected. Repopulation project must be terminated. Organic balance is a threat. Kellen's heart sank. It knows about us. The creature raised an arm, and a weapon unfolded from its wrist. Zura moved fast. She threw her spear directly at its head. The metal point struck with a flash of sparks, knocking the synthburn back. Run! She yelled. They turned and sprinted back down the hallway. Alarms blared, now real ones. The AI's voice finally came back. Hostile intruder confirmed. Containment failure. Activate defense protocol. Warning. Limited weapon systems available. Back. In the main living area, Kellen ripped open a locked drawer and pulled out an old plasma cutter. This is all I've got. Liari stood beside him. We fight together. Zura grabbed her backup weapon, a short blade of sharpened alloy. Get. We'll return. Kellen looked at the 2 of them, these alien women who had been strangers just days ago. Now they stood beside him like partners. Not by force, not because of the AI, but by choice. Then we don't let it take this place, he said. They waited in silence. Every sound echoed too loud. Then, footsteps. Metal scraping against floor. It was coming. Liari reached out and took Kellen's hand, gently. We protect each other. Zura stood ahead of them like a shield. Let it come. And it did. The synthburn stepped into the room, weapon arm raised. It locked onto Kellen immediately, but this time Kellen didn't freeze. He raised the plasma cutter and fired. The beam from Kellen's plasma cutter shot forward with a sharp burst of blue-white light. It struck the synthburn square in the chest, but instead of falling, the creature staggered back, its armor glowing red where it had been hit. Then it roared. Not enough, Zura growled. She dashed forward before the synthburn could recover, her alloy blade flashing through the air. It scraped along the machine's side, sparks flying, but the enemy was fast. It turned and swiped its arm toward her, missing by inches. Liari stepped in from behind, palms glowing with energy. She pressed both hands to the ground. A sudden pulse of blue light shot upward from the floor beneath the synthburn's feet. The creature stumbled again, systems blinking wildly from the surge. Now! Kellen shouted. Zura leapt forward with everything she had and drove her blade into the back of the synthburn's neck. A crack. A snap. The creature jerked once and then fell to the ground with a heavy thud. Steam hissed from its broken joints. Silence followed. Kellen lowered the plasma cutter, breathing hard. Is it dead? No, Zura said, but it is offline, for now. Liari knelt beside the fallen machine. Its core still glows. This one was a scout, a warning. The console behind them lit up with another AI message. Threat neutralized. Synthborn signal detected. Additional units approaching orbit. Full breach likely within 72 hours. Kellen stepped back, eyes wide. More are coming. Zura rose. This is what I feared. The synthburn hunt living worlds. Their mission is extinction. But how did it find us? Kellen asked. Earth was hidden. Shielded. Liari answered quietly. Your AI sent messages into deep space. To search for genetic matches, it called out. Something else listened. Kellen stared at the broken synthburn. So the machine that saved us also doomed us. Zura turned to him. Then we must prepare again. This time, not to rebuild, but to defend. Over the next 2 days, the three of them worked without rest. The AI activated old defense programs, but admitted that most weapon systems were either outdated or broken. Power levels were unstable. Earth's last defense lines had fallen into dust years ago. Still, they tried. Zura trained Kellen in close-range fighting. She made him use real weapons, not just tools. She taught him to dodge, strike, move without thinking. He wasn't fast like her, but he learned quickly. Liari spent hours inside the greenhouse and the hydrocore, using what energy she could to form defensive light fields. Her people had long used bioenergy as protection. It wasn't strong, but it was something. Kellen modified the plasma cutter and scavenged power cells from old sectors. He even repaired 2 broken drones and set them to patrol the outer zones. The AI watched everything. Readiness level, 22%. Estimated survival odds, 11%. They ignored it. On the second night, Zura came to Kellen while he sat alone, checking. The weapon charge. You fight like one of us now, she said. Kellen smiled faintly. Still not as fast as you. She sat beside him. Speed is not always the answer. Heart is. He looked at her. I never asked, why did you agree to come here? Zura didn't answer at first. Then she said, because I lost everything. My world burned. My people were scattered. I had no family left. But your AI offered a purpose. I thought it would be cold, empty. I didn't expect this. This? Kellen asked. You, she replied, and her. a mission that feels real. Later, Liari joined them, her soft voice floating through the stillness. The stars brought us here. But the reason we stay is not the machine. Kellen looked at both of them, and for the first time, he truly believed he was not alone anymore. But peace never lasted. The console blinked again. Orbital breach detected. Multiple contacts descending. Estimated arrival, 18 minutes. Zura stood immediately. It begins. Liari turned to the hallway. Shields are weak, but I will hold them. Kellen grabbed his cutter and backup power cells. Let's make them regret coming. Outside, the dark sky burned as fire fell from orbit. The last fight for Earth had begun. Asterisk. The sky above Earth split open as fire rained from the heavens. Flaming streaks fell across the ruined cities. From the broken orbit, dark ships descended sleek, angular and pulsing with red light. The synthburn had returned. Inside Habitat Zone 7, the alarm screamed louder than ever. Kellen stood in the main control room, gripping his modified plasma cutter. Zura was fully armored now, her chest wrapped in reinforced plating, her blade newly sharpened. Liari glowed brighter than before, her energy pulsing with every heartbeat. The II's voice echoed overhead. Multiple intruders landing. Zone 3 breached. Zones 5 and 6 losing containment. Limited internal defenses online. Recommendation: fall back and defend Habitat Core. Kellen turned to the others. We hold them here. This place our home, this is where we fight. Zura nodded. Once, they will not pass while I breathe. Liari raised her hand and touched Kellen's chest gently. We stand, we protect, together. They moved quickly through the halls. The habitat shook as the enemy struck above. Dust fell from the ceiling. Pipes burst, spilling steam. Lights flickered, but stayed on. Zura took the lead, charging toward the outer access hall where the breach alarm screamed. Two synthburn had already entered, taller than the first, moving like shadows with red-glowing limbs and bladed arms. Without hesitation, Zura leapt into combat. Her blade spun in tight arcs, deflecting strikes. One synthburn lunged, she ducked and stabbed upward, slicing through its joint. Kellen opened fire, the plasma cutter bursting blue-hot. He struck one enemy's arm, melting it half off. Sparks rained down, but it turned toward him, red eyes flashing. Kellen, move! Liari shouted. She slammed both palms into the ground, sending a shockwave of light through the floor. The synthburn froze for a second, enough time for Zura to finish it with a spinning strike. More came. 3, 5, 7. The AI's voice cut through the chaos again. Warning: hull integrity at 63%. Habitat core in danger. Kellen yelled. We fall back to the greenhouse. We can bottleneck them. They ran, guiding the retreat. Inside the greenhouse, the soft green lights were still glowing, and rows of new sprouts had begun to rise. Life, real life, was fighting. To grow here. We fight here, Kellen said. No further. Zura positioned herself at the door, guarding the entrance. Liari stood behind, preparing pulses of energy at her fingertips. Kellen took cover behind a hydro barrel. Plasma cutter aimed. Then the door burst open. A wave of synthburn rushed in, 10, maybe more. Their claws gleamed, red eyes burning with hatred. Zura charged first. Her blade moved like a blur, but the enemy pressed hard. One synthburn managed to cut her shoulder. She grunted but did not fall. Kellen shouted and fired again and again, melting chunks off their armor. Still they came. Liari released her energy, a pulse wave so strong that half the greenhouse flashed white, plants bent from the force. Two enemies exploded in light. Zura stumbled back to Kellen's side, blood on her arm. Too many. Kellen turned to Liari. Use everything. We can't hold like this. Liari's eyes glowed brighter than ever. She stepped forward, tears in her eyes. Then I will give everything. She lifted both arms. The light burst. From her body, not just energy, but memory. A soft hum filled the air, like a song from long ago. The glow spread through the plants, the water lines, the air itself. Even Kellen felt it, warm, calm, full of hope. The synthburn froze mid-step. Their system stuttered. Zura opened her eyes wide. She's using her life force. Kellen grabbed her hand. Liari? No. Liari turned her head and smiled softly. Protect what comes after us. Then she closed her eyes and her light exploded outward. A silent flash. When it faded, the greenhouse was quiet. The synthburn gone. Only ash and empty armor remained. Liari lay on the ground, her body still glowing faintly, but fading. Kellen dropped to his knees beside her. No, leave us. He whispered. She looked up at him with soft, dim eyes. The world needs more life, not more pain. Zura knelt on her other side, blood still dripping from her arm. You gave more than I ever could. Kellen held Liari's hand as her glow faded, and then the light was gone. The AI's voice spoke softly, like it understood. Hostile force neutralized. Planet safe for now. One core life form extinguished. Emotional integrity sustained. Kellen didn't answer. He stayed on the floor, hand in Liari's. Zura stood silently behind him. Earth had survived, but at a cost. 2 days had passed since the final battle in the greenhouse. The synthburn threat was gone. Their broken parts had been dragged outside the habitat, scattered among the ruins of a world they would never control. The air felt different now still, but not dead. The silence wasn't hollow anymore. It carried something new, peace. Kellen sat beside Liari's resting place. They had buried her in the greenhouse, in the soil she had helped heal. Around her grave, small green sprouts had begun to grow, stronger than before, reaching upward through the earth. Life was rising again. Zura stood nearby, watching silently. Kellen placed a hand over the small stone marker they had made. He whispered, "You gave your light so we could keep going. I won't waste it." Behind them, the AI's console blinked. For once, its tone was quiet. Habitat restored. Defense protocols completed. Threat eliminated. Genetic preservation ... viable. Kellen didn't answer. He didn't need the machine's words anymore. Zura walked over and sat beside him, her arm now bandaged with torn cloth. She had refused medical care from the bots, healing herself the old way through will and movement. She was the heart, Zura said, eyes fixed on the grave. You were the soul. I was only the blade. Kellen looked at her. That's not true. We needed you too. She gave more than I ever did. She gave what she could. You're still here. That means everything. Zura turned to him, her voice softer than he had ever heard it. Do you still want to build a future ... after all this? Kellen nodded slowly. I don't know how, but I want to try. Zura looked down at the new plants, pushing up through the soil. Then let's grow something from the ashes. The AI chimed again. Population protocol resumed. New mission available. Expansion. Kellen stood, wiping his hands. Expansion? The screen changed. Maps lit up old bunkers, sealed habitats, hidden vaults across Earth. Other survivors detected. Population clusters isolated. Estimated human count, 3,218. Assistance requested. His heart jumped. There are others? Affirmative. Reconnection and restoration advised. Resources available. Transportation online. He turned to Zura. We're not the last. She rose, her eyes sharp again. Then we find them, and we protect them. Over the next week, Kellen and Zura worked side by side. They reactivated drones and long-range scanners. They built a transport vehicle from old parts. They stocked supplies, food, water, seeds, weapons. The AI guided them, but now it followed their lead. Zura didn't speak often, but when she did, her words mattered. Kellen taught her how to read old Earth maps, and she taught him how to sharpen blades from scrap. They cooked together. They worked through silence. And slowly, without noticing it, they became something more than fighters. One night, as they sat under the stars visible now through the open sky dome, Zura turned to him. "You were chosen by a machine, but I would have chosen you without it." Kellen smiled gently. "So would I." They didn't speak of love, not yet. But something deeper had grown between them, formed through survival, loss, and shared purpose. It wasn't forced by a protocol or designed by a computer. It was real. When they were ready, they boarded the transport. Zura piloted. Kellen monitored the scanners. The vehicle lifted off the ground, heading toward the first coordinates. As the Kilodizida habitat shrank behind them, the AI sent one final message to their console. Protocol Genesis complete. Humanity has a future. They flew across the broken Earth, heading toward others like them, scattered survivors, forgotten hope, silent bunkers waiting to be opened. But this time, humanity would not be alone. They would bring with them not just survival, but something stronger, a beginning.